On this edition of Kana and Mike's Movie Night, we're checking out the Netflix original, Bright. Hey everybody, and welcome to Season 2 of Kana and Mike's Movie Night. I'm Mike.
I'm Kana.
And you will have to forgive us if we seem a little under the weather. As we are recording this, the holiday season has just ended, more or less. It's the day after Christmas as we're recording this. And we've kind of been under the weather a little bit, as you can see.
I feel like crap. But I am determined to make it through this review.
So, we've just got done watching the Netflix original Bright, which is why I don't have a Blu-ray or DVD cover with me. And if you want an idea of what the movie's about, a synopsis, Wikipedia is your friend. Or hop on Netflix and watch it.
It says, in an LA rife with interspecies tension, a human cop and his orc partner stumble on a powerful object and become embroiled in a prophesied turf war.
Yes. It stars Will Smith as Scott Ward, Joel Edgerton.
Which, it's not Scott Ward. They call him Daryl.
Yeah, they call him Daryl in the movie, but the cast list says Scott. We don't know why.
Because Netflix fucked up.
One, for those of you playing the drinking game at home. Joel Edgerton as Nick Jacoby.
As the orc.
He's the orc. And Numi, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but Numi Rapace, I'm assuming is our elven. No, that's Lucy Fry as Tika. So I have no idea who she plays. Regardless, it is essentially a buddy cop movie in a lot of regards, with the comedy heavily downplayed. Baby, your first impressions of Bright.
I have no clue what to fucking think about this movie. We paused it like
about halfway through,
and I looked at you and I said, I don't know what I think about this movie. And you looked back at me and you said, neither do I.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. My first impression, it's interesting, and I do like the idea of showing a level of fantasy and the fantasy races and things like that in a modern world. I think that's actually pretty darn cool. I like that. As far as the rest of the movie is concerned, it's a whole lot of MacGuffin is what it feels like to me. I'll kind of go ahead and hit my likes of the movie. Will Smith, I mean, there's a reason he's been nominated for 2 Academy Awards over the years and some Golden Globes.
This was not his best.
This was not his best performance, but Will Smith phoning it in is still better than a lot of actors when they're on point. This movie was very much Will Smith being Will Smith. I'll say that. If you've seen a Will Smith movie where he's the serious cop type character, this is nothing new. I did enjoy it because of the setting that was around it. I enjoyed Joel Edgerton as the orc. There's a whole lot of metaphor in this movie. Essentially, elves are your rich white people. And
only they're elves and magical.
Yeah, difference being they're elves. Orcs are essentially your immigrants, your minorities that are heavily stereotyped and so on.
So black, Hispanic, and anything else in between.
Yeah, essentially. And then humanity effectively all fall into the middle class among the race structure. And I'm sure, and they give you idea that there's still some ethnic structure within humanity, that hasn't gone away, but they downplay it in favor of putting over the more obvious racial overtones between orcs and elves. And they mention a couple other fantasy races. We see a couple of fairies, literally 2. They mention dwarves and things like that in the movie. And I will say this, the the makeup for the orcs far better than I was expecting for a Netflix original. Same thing for a lot of the special effects.
Netflix puts in a lot of money for their original stuff. So I was expecting this kind of quality in regards to the CG, because the CG was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The costuming was very good.
Mm-hmm.
And the makeup was fantastic as well. I thought the prosthetics and everything else was done very well. They made a point to not make it look like they were all cast molded with the masks and a lot of the facial prosthetics, because not a single one of the orcs, which are the ones that primarily are using these components, look alike. Not a single one of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of individualized makeup jobs.
But I expect nothing less from Netflix, because they put more effort in their smaller budget stuff than some big business movie franchises do.
Yeah, I mean, it's not movie of the week or straight to DVD or Blu-ray. However, it's not a major motion picture. It falls firmly in between the two. But it is very well done.
For quality-wise, I would put it more... I think it had some better CG than the... what was the last movie that we saw that had a lot of CG in it?
Oh, goodness gracious. I don't remember.
I think it was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians 2?
Guardians
maybe.
2. And I put it on point with that.
And they didn't use a lot of... That's the other thing. They didn't use a lot of CG.
It was a lot of practical.
There's a good amount of practical effects. I'll bet money that a lot of the explosions in the movie were enhanced with CG. But blatant use of CG, few and far in between, basically used for our MacGuffin, which is a magic wand, which they really do make you think that a magic wand can bring about the end of the world in this movie, just the way they treat it.
Well, it's like a mass destruction weapon.
That's the way they treat it.
And pretty much this feels like it's a commentary on the world. I think that Netflix tried to sneak this in as a fantasy, but really it's like Animal Farm. This is a commentary on our current world and our views on immigrants and ethnic groups in the U.S., along with, ethnic cleansing using a wand. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of metaphor and message and political overtone to the movie. For the stuff, is there anything in particular beyond that you liked? Before I get on to what bitching I'm going to do?
I will say I have not heard this much rap music since I watched... Oh gosh, what was... I can't even think of the movie. I haven't heard this much rap music in a very long time.
Well, I mean, it's based in some bad neighborhoods of Los Angeles.
Yes, but again, you are stereotyping.
Right, you are, but that's kind of what they were trying to do.
If they could stereotype something, they did. And the rap music they used, though I did hear Snoop Dogg in there, and I can appreciate Snoop Dogg. But, I mean, the music wasn't bad. I just could have used something other than rap music.
And one other thing I will give them credit for before I go into my dislikes, I'm going to give them credit for the use of language in the movie. Orcs, elves, and humans all have distinct languages in the film. We hear a lot of Orcish spoke. We hear a good bit of Elvish spoken. And of course, there's English. But what I really do like is the fact that they went through the trouble of creating, or at the least creating for the purposes of what was being said, something that sounded like distinct dialogues and distinct languages. And
Orc was Russian sounding.
Yes, it was. Very guttural.
So, while the Elvish was a little bit more French.
Right. I mean, they're going to be somewhat derivative, but they went through the trouble of making them different languages. And I appreciate that in this kind of setting. And not taking the lazy way out of just assuming everyone speaks English all of the time.
Which they did call out in the movie.
Oh, they did at one point.
Guess what? She speaks English! After the whole movie, they're having him translate her Elvish, even though he hasn't taken Elvish since high school.
Yes. But they also make a point for her to say, but now I trust you. So it wasn't that she... It kind of falls into the Jackie Chan, Chris Rock Rush Hour thing, where
Only Rush Hour was done so much better than this, script-wise.
The assumption is that Jackie Chan can't speak English, when the reality is, yes, he can. He just wants to see how full of shit Chris Tucker's character is. And so it read similarly to me here. Now for the stuff I didn't care for. The story of this movie is the story between Jacoby and Ward. That's the story of this movie. They are the dynamic in a microcosm. You have the human cop and you have the orc partner, the first orcish police officer. And you have these two. There's a lot of bigotry. There's a lot of mistrust on the behalf of Ward, Will Smith, against Jacoby Edgerton, who frankly is just trying to do the right thing, trying to stay straight and narrow and be a good cop. And their relationship, to me, forms the basis for the movie as a whole. And it's that relationship. The magic wand, most of the action sequences and all of that were set dressing for the two of them to move their story along.
It was unnecessary.
Their story or all the set dressing?
All the set dressing.
Yes, that's what I'm getting to.
Oh,
it
Sorry,
really was.
You were kind of taking about as long as this movie did to get where it was supposed to go.
The bottom line is...
He's going to curse at me soon.
Yes, but I'll do it off camera, unlike what she does.
I believe in not hiding myself.
So, by the way, if the camera moves a little bit, that's because our camera operator may decide that she doesn't like the shot, so Duncan may adjust our camera. And I don't know if she's going to try to become our new sound technician or not, because the microphone is sitting next to the camera. So, at any rate, she approved of the camera angle. So, yeah, they're the story. So a lot of the action and all of that and the MacGuffin of the magic wand and so on, it really is much ado about nothing in this movie. It's so much a case of padding a 2-hour runtime. This could have lasted an hour and told the same story and probably told it better.
I could have done with it being a mini-series, with it being multiple episodes, to get to the same point.
I would have actually liked to see an episodic mini-series. I can go along with that. You'd never got Will Smith for it. But you would have had to have gotten a different actor at that point.
Well, I think Will Smith only did this because his last couple of movies have been shit in the box office.
Possibly. Or it could just be that Netflix likes spending money. After all, aren't they the ones that have to deal with Adam Sandler?
Yes.
And the prosecution, rest your honor.
They have a lot of people. Drew Barrymore as well is on their meal ticket.
So the bottom line here is...
just because Will Smith's name on it does not mean it's good.
Yeah, well, my bottom line is they took a lot of time to do something that they could have done in half the same amount of time. Anything you didn't care for in the movie? You've already talked about the music, which is your big thing.
Yeah, I could have used with some variety, at least with a lot of other things today. Even if it has a very, ethnic-centric or a diversity issue going on, there's at least some variety in the music because they're trying to show the issue of diversity. No, this was just rap music. And I was kind of like, well... No, I'm sorry. One time, didn't they try and play heavy metal?
They played some really over the top speed metal under the guise of it being an orcish love song.
Anywho's, so music, I kind of get Netflix could have done better. They had the budget, obviously, because they didn't waste it in a lot of other ways in this movie. Though, then again, Will Smith's paycheck could have been the waste of that movie. They could have had anyone other than Will Smith in this movie, and I think it would have still been just as good. I think they were trying to pull in a big name in hopes of making this release a little bit bigger, because this was released on the winter solstice. In other words, in hopes of, I guess, pulling in the whole little, fantastical item. So that was a good idea, but I don't think it was done well. And they keep talking about a Dark Lord without really giving any basis on who the frickin' Dark Lord was. See, I didn't use it this time. Aren't you proud?
I'm proud. Very good.
Working on cutting down on my cussing.
So, I very much agree. It could have been anybody other than Will Smith. It really could have been. But I do think it was very, very intelligent to have an African-American leading man or a minority leading man in that role, because it would have been... I think the movie would have got crucified if you'd have had a Caucasian guy in that role, simply because it would have hit way too close to home for a whole lot of people, given the message of the movie, which is overcome your bigotry, look at each person as an individual, and judge them by what they do or what they don't do, not their history, not their past, of their people or their race or their ethnicity or what have you.
Well, the few white people that are actually in this movie are the most racist people.
Yes.
So it's a nice stereotype, again, because not every white person is going to be racist, and not every white cop is going to be racist. But thank you, Netflix, on that commentary on our world today.
So, but by having it be a minority, a human minority with the orc, and initially being very bigoted and very mistrustful, and then coming around by the end, I think that made for a very good message, a very good way of handling the message. So, closing thoughts. And your rating.
I'm going to give it a half cell phone up, because I honestly couldn't take it after like the first hour and 15, because I couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on.
So...
It should have been 4, but I
For anyone out there who's ever watched Team 4 Star's Dragon Ball Abridged, if I can find a way to do our version of the Krillin owned counter, which in this case would be the Kana fuck counter, you may see that it start appearing in the corner of these videos over the course of the season. In my case, I'm going to give it the same thing. I'm going to give it a half cell phone down. So this one gets 1 cell phone down total between the two of us. It took a long time to tell a short story, and that's the bottom line. I liked a lot of the interplay between the two characters, between Ward and Jacoby. It had some good, funny buddy cop moments. One of the staples of the buddy cop movie, where it's at the end of it, they're still not partners. They kept that they played with that a lot. I liked Rodriguez, who was one of the supporting characters. He was
Hispanic sheriff,
who they did kill off.
Again, let's kill off all the minorities. Yay!
Well,
Thank you, Netflix.
To be fair, they killed off about 3 white cops too. So
yeah, but that was with a minority killing them.
So,
again, commentary.
But
thank you.
They wound up doing with Rodriguez. Showing a little nod to humanity's own bigotry and whatnot, when Jacoby says, a bunch of orcs made a mistake 2,000 years ago, and Rodriguez's response is, well, hell, they're still giving us shit over the Alamo. So, it's a tongue-in-cheek line that gives a laugh, but it's a commentary. I like the way they handle a lot of that. So, there's some good points to the movie. There's more good to it than bad. The problem is that the bad is it's an hour longer than it needed to be. So,
an hour and a half longer than it really needed to be.
I don't think you could have done that in 30 minutes.
I think you could have done it in about 45.
So,
again, it was too long. It was not.
Yeah.
It did not need to be that long. You could have done the same amount of storytelling in a shorter amount of time, but you know what? They probably would have put a lot of it on the cutting floor, and then we would have been going even further. What the fuck is going on?
So, folks, I think that about wraps it up for this edition of Canon Mike's Movie Night. Of course, if you want to help us out, you can do that by, if you like the video, give us the thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give us the thumbs down. That's fine.
Leave us a comment, though, on why you don't like it, because I'd like to know,
Or leave us a comment as to why you do like it, because we'd like to know that, too. We can do more of that. Also...
I like positive criticism.
Also, if you haven't already, hit that red subscribe button. That does help us out as well. We appreciate that a whole lot. And, of course, that'll keep you up to date on all the new episodes of Kane and Mike's Movie Night coming your way this season. So, folks, until next time, I'm Mike.
And I'm Kana.
And we'll see you on Kane and Mike's Movie Night.